Hi everyone, this is another episode of The Core. I'm Sami,
I'm Awoe.
I'm Serwah.
I'm Blossom.
and today we are talking about a topic that is near and dear to all of us, something that we've been dealing with and would like to solve, especially now we're starting on our new adult lives, life goals, and African expectations. School, marriage, and kids. Just to kick things off, I want to express and let everyone express, what are the specific values and expectations you were raised with in your household? Who would like to start? I see
I get.
Blossom. Oh, sorry.
Always picking on me,
Go for
Sami.
Well, I could start. So for me, I was raised in a Christian-based household. So went to church, was raised in the church. And also expectations, like my mother was very, very strict about my education. Like I had to, be good in school, no boyfriends, that's taboo. We're gonna talk about how that's changed all of a sudden. Let's see, what else? I don't know. I'm sure if somebody say something, I'll be like, yeah, me too. But those are the three things that were very salient in my upbringing.
Yeah, for sure. With expectations, I think expectations are similar. I better do well in school. That was the number one priority. Whether it's elementary school or middle school, it was middle school. And high school especially. But I think by high school, my parents they didn't pay too much attention. They just saw the final report card, nothing along the way. It was just doesn't matter as long as you get the A's that you're supposed to get. But when it comes to values, it was always hard work, through their own examples, and also at the same time treating other people right. But at the same time, it's also understanding that the world's not fair, and me trying to get into my head that don't expect anything from anyone. So you have to be ready to do it on your own, and don't really trust people, and I don't know, it's kind of weird. I don't know what's weird, but sort of that idea of you have to work hard for yourself, because no one's gonna hand things out to you.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I think, like you guys said, it was mostly education. It was always education. I can't remember anything else that, at least so explicit, that was told to me, and so implicit, when they dropped my siblings and I off at the library every day for every summer, right? Growing up, it was always get these A's, read
Right.
your books. We're not allowed to watch television on the weekdays. I don't know about y'all. I remember only Fridays. It was crazy. It's crazy. And it's just obviously that's so important. Education, success, blah, blah, blah. But it's there's more to life than, at least the form of education where they saw Harvard, Yale, Stanford, all these top tier schools and all that stuff. And it's there's more to life. I think because especially the education system in this country, at least for me, I don't know if I've ever really quote unquote learned. I've just been able to regurgitate a lot of facts. So is it really making me quote unquote smarter, or do I just look smart on paper, which is fine. But if you ask me to do a skill, it's next caller, because I can't do it. So I don't know. It's just very,
Yeah, I'm gonna take it back a little bit. It reminds me I used to have to get my mom would buy us workbooks in the summertime, and she's you have to do this in the summer to make sure you could stay on top of your skills, your math and reading skills. I was oh man. But at the same time, I used to want to read a lot. I liked reading. Reading was a fun
I used to love to read.
thing. And now
same.
It's here's a book, and I'm
who's that?
I'm reading kind of hard. I'm
Yeah, I can proudly say my parents were not so
invested in my siblings' education in so much as, you know, dropping us off at a library every day, limiting hours of watching television. Like, I can remember watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Charmed, all these things at the age of 5 forward. Or like this workbook concept. It's very different. However, I think it was because that expectation of like, you have to do well no matter what. And that I'm not familiar with the stress. This whole engineer, doctor, lawyer thing doesn't exist in our household. However, I would say it's largely because my parents just expected we would just do well because we're just good people, or because we're their children, we're going to do well. And we did. Like, my brother did well, I did well, my sister is the best of all of us. So in terms of education, that wasn't so much of as a loud value, so much as other things, such as my dad very stressed, like, instead of just education, he says that education is something that can never be taken away from you. He stressed, similar to what Awoe said, you know, there's this thing about knowing yourself, knowing your community. However, they very strongly dislike the people around us who are in our community. So they're very wary of other Ethiopian people, just because my parents are the biggest critics of Ethiopian people, just because of, like, you know, back-talking, backstabbing, betrayal, all these things that happen in their own personal life as they navigated being an immigrant. They're the first ones to critique us for not speaking a language fluently, but yet when you bring up you don't like us to be around anyone else, right? But they're the first one to be like, don't trust another Ethiopian person. They're not good people. So what is the truth? And then this underlying, similar to what Serwah said, you know, going to church. My dad says now, all of a sudden, that he's not a Christian, but he was raised in a Christian household, and my mother's Muslim. However, they didn't really bring either faiths into the household. We didn't go to anything, but there always is this underlying assumption and belief that God exists. And so when I voice my opinions on things now, my mom is very afraid when I suggest that I don't believe in an Abrahamic faith or religion. She's like, what? How is this possible? As well as having kids, I very voice all the time, no, I don't want to have kids. You're not having kids from me. You have my brother who's, you know, on his way to get married very soon, and my sister who's planning out the 4 names for her children. It's just like, it's good. The line is continuing. It's not going to be me. Leave me alone. And just recently now she's accepted that, and she's not sad when I say it to her. So those are and that's a little bit how things have changed when you had to be very adamant, a little militaristic in how you approach your parents and say, like, no, this is not who I am. How have these values or expectations shifted for you at all, if at all?
Would you like?
Oh,
go ahead.
I think going off of what you said about being militaristic about what you want, I think for me it's just like I have begun setting certain boundaries, and that really happened because I went to college, and I was able to be away from my mom for a little while, and they really do say, what is it, absence makes the heart grow fonder. I definitely think that helped out a lot. And also my mom became even more invested in the church. So like her, like the way she did things, like changed a whole lot. So that improved our relationship, and that also improved like our communication with each other, and just being like, yeah, like this is not it. Like this is not how I want to be treated. This is not what I want to do. This is, you know, yada, yada, yada. There's definitely some like, you know, arguments like that. My mom still brings up doctor still. I'm like, ma'am. She's like, you have so many years ahead of you. You can always change your mind. Like, I don't think that's happening anytime soon.
Right.
Another expectation that has changed is, you know, when I was growing up, you know, no boyfriend. Don't even think about it. Like one time I had a boyfriend in 5th grade. My mom obviously was looking through my phone, found out. I got shipped back to Ghana. But so, you know, that shit, I'm gonna ship you back. That's a legit threat, like, because that happened to me. But now it's like every possible man is a suitor. Like she's like, you have to act this way. You have to be a lady. Like you don't know who's watching. I'm like, Mom, like I don't think that's happening anytime soon. Like. You're the one who was like, you need to focus your education. And right now I actually am focusing on that. So can you please leave me alone? Like, I don't want to be married in the next few years. Like that's not that's not in my plan. That's not my 5-year plan. I'm sorry.
Right.
But I think the expectations has changed as I've grown up and I've become more matured, and our relationship dynamic as well has shifted. And obviously she doesn't care about education anymore because I graduated, but like she still wants me
you
to
got
like,
that.
exactly, but she still wants me to do more. She's like, get your PhD, be a doctor, blah blah. Yeah,
there's always more.
Never ends. All these expectations, it just keeps growing and growing. It's like, all right, now I just need some grandkids. Like, all right, no, I just remember like it's okay. But no, I remember like it was actually specifically what 2 years ago, my junior year or my sophomore year. I came home for a break. I was at church, saying hi to one of the aunties and stuff like that. And she's like a modern auntie. She's like similar age to my mom, but she's like relatively, modern. So she asked me, she's like, oh, so how's school, how's stuff? Do you have a boyfriend yet? My mother. Cute, like straight up. She's walking right past and it turns for that conversation. She's like, what? Boyfriend? What are you talking about? She's like, why would you say, like, just like dismissing the whole notion of a boy or a friend, I guess. And so, cut to my graduation. or not my graduation specifically, rather than like after I graduated, I was at my aunt's house for her, like another family gathering. And my aunt's asking me like, oh, so did you see any boyfriend? Did you have anything? This is 2 years from that same moment. My mom's like looking at and trying to hear my answer to my question. I'm like, Auntie, no, I didn't see anyone. There was nobody there. I should have brought up the fact that I was told not to ever have a boyfriend or anything like that. But my mom was like, oh, it's okay. I guess you didn't find anyone there. I don't know. Like, I just don't understand how this whole shifts. Even at my graduation party, that like was not even a month after I graduated that I had the party. Uncles, aunties, okay, great that you graduated. So next time next time we'll see each other, it will be marriage, it will be masters, it will be grandkids, it will be wedding. I'm like, I graduated less than a month ago. Like, y'all can't celebrate me, please. Like, just pause. So it's just so funny and interesting how I don't even know where it come from, why it's so uniform in the African community. And sorry to even ramble, but I just remember, or not, rather than not remember, but I know my parents didn't even have quote unquote any type of detox with me. Never, ever. I think I got asked, oh, are you doing stuff one time out of my 23 years of life? So like, I've never had a conversation fully, the talk, right? Never had a full conversation. I've been asked one question from my mother, again, in 23 years. So I'm just like, sis, like, and I don't know, African parents in totality needs to do better, I think. Just even communicating with your children and not setting the expectation like astronomically high for anything and then switching like total 360s after you get a degree, like a piece of paper. Like, I don't really understand, but we all go through it, so. Milestone.
They expect the next one like immediately. Like they expect a boyfriend to just appear out of nowhere after years of not being even allowed, and the presence
of other genders. Like, oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right. I want to hear the male perspective though. I'm curious.
I would feel like you should go.
Yeah.
I think everything.
Am I frozen?
Well, that's true. It's very different with you. Oh no, you're not frozen anymore.
Oh, you're good.
You, right?
Mm-hmm.
Y'all look frozen on my screen. Give me a second.
No, you're not. Oh, I was like, we can't see you.
Just go ahead and talk.
Yeah. Oh yeah, can he? I don't think he can hear us. Though.
I can hear you. I can hear y'all.
Well,
oh, you can.
Oh, okay. Yeah, perfect.
But I said that like
but if
2 seconds. I said like 30 seconds ago.
Oh.
Well, are you recording? Awoe?
I'm recording.
Will
so,
it record
and your
us
screen
frozen?
is frozen.
It says still recording.
I don't know what to do. I don't know.
The point is because then it'll be recording like the frozen screen on your end.
You think so?
Oh my goodness.
Maybe we can just use this episode as a strictly audio one.
Yeah, we can do
just
that.
move forward, maybe.
Okay.
Is that all right? Okay.
Oh, I think y'all are moving again. I see you, Sammy. Okay, wait.
Okay, perfect.
Freeze frame. Okay, I think we're good. Okay, my perspective. So,
yeah,
it's a little different. I think my high school experience, I sort of did things independently. I sort of figured like I wanted to, I don't know, throughout high school, I started doing things sort of on my own. My parents didn't, like I said, they didn't get too involved with school as long as they saw the final product. So like I started like, oh, I'm going to play soccer, play an instrument, do all these things. And by the time I got to senior year, I dated someone, but it was like it was more like it wasn't like I asked for permission. I like started dating the person, and then, but see the thing is, it was like there was trust that like built up, sort of, in like, how do I explain? It wasn't like trust. I don't know.
Trust?
Like it was more like
what?
It was more like I said, everything that you want from me is getting done. Like I'm getting good grades. Like I'm
at the tender age of 17.
And so I was like, I'm gonna date this person, and
okay, make an ultimatum.
You're okay.
Wow,
then,
rebel.
I like that. Must be nice.
And it was fine. It was fine. Like it was like kind of awkward with my dad. But he was always like, "Is your friend around?" Or like, I was like, "Is your friend?"
Your friend.
But my mom, she was nice. She like got to know my girlfriend. She was white. And like she got to know her, and like still close to my family to this day. We broke up when we got to college. So we dated for like almost a year.
You didn't want to do the long distance thing?
Yeah, it was a whole, like, we were like going to college and like starting new chapters, or like, let's just stop this. We're still friends. And since then I think that was a good thing, because since then, like, I've had like a sort of open relationship with my mom, especially about stuff. Like if something comes up, like, I don't know, I'm not afraid to like talk to her about stuff. But it's always funny because she always bring up like it always escalates to like an African mom's perspective. Like it always jumps straight into like, oh, like, is she Christian? Is she this? Is she? I'm like, okay, like, chill. I'm just like, I don't know, like, just there's no need to like escalate anything, you know. And I don't know, I'm thankful for that, because like, I don't know, it's made everything in my life pretty open, whether it's school or relationships, like more serious ones. And like, I don't know, I'm glad for it, because like it's a way to like talk to my mom. I'll be like, tell me about your own experience, or like tell me about this and all of that. So I don't know what it's gonna look like now that like I'm out of college. But I will say that it is different how I'm treated versus how my sister's treated. Like
100%.
that is different though. Like the sort of expectations are there, like walking on arguments about like, you have to be able to cook for your husband, and my sister's like, I'm cooking for myself, like I don't care about like, you know. And at the same time, like,
and
I get pampered, you know. And so like, I don't know, it's I'm like, okay.
And this is a bit of what Blossom knows as well, of how I feel my household.
A little bit of an anomaly, just because out of all of the children here, between my brother and my sister, I'm the only one who really abided by those rules of not having any type of relationship with someone until you're like a little into adulthood. So like no interaction until maybe I was 20 years old, compared to my older brother who was dating in high school, and then even my sister. That's a household secret. My mom knows, of course, and my father doesn't. But that's all just to say, kind of because I already know my own life is going to be tested if I were to, you know, be adamant or truthful about who I am and how I love, just because of the environments I'm in. So that's one element of just always knowing that, because of our relative environments and cultures say that people who are gay or not strictly straight are somehow wrong or the physical sin or the embodiment of such. There's an always underlying a bit of tension when people or my parents like ask me, oh, when are you going to get married or when do you have kids? I'm like, you can't even imagine what I want to say, but things like that. But it's funny about the talk that, you know, Blossom never really had with her mother other than that one time, or maybe we all share that. I try to bring up the talk with my parents because I wanted to talk about that with my sister, just because I understand her being a young girl. I don't want her to be influenced by people, just because as people in this country, I think people who are younger, people in middle school, high school, they may be able to experiment with sex, and that's not inherently wrong, but she just needs to understand things. And to this day, she still doesn't want to like take a look or understand her own anatomy or herself, but she wants to date silly people. It just doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, like I try to have conversations with her about like sex ed back when she was like 9-10 years old, and like slowly forward. And my parents, as soon as I mention that, they're saying that's disgusting, don't bring that stuff up. I'm like, why not though? Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Right, like you're not going to tell me that my older brother was not active while he was in high school, that these are not the same acts that reproduced us, not once, but not twice, but at least 3 times to have 3 kids. Like, don't lie in my face. Because, you know, across the continent, there is understanding of sex and a practice of, you know, whether it be full-on respecting our bodies to circumcision, whether it be male or female. Like, obviously we know the vocabulary and obviously we know what these body parts do. I just don't think it makes sense to be ashamed of them, especially if we're going to shame them in a patriarchy where women such as Serwah and Blossom are going to be taught, you know, you have to cook for your husband or worry about this imaginable man that doesn't exist, rather than focusing on their own personhood. And so these are the things that I really fight about, and I want to ask the question for all of us. How have you, in your own journey of shaping your own expectations and values, tried to shape those of your parents as well? Because I've always had this conversation with my mom, who always thinks, oh, I'm past 50 years old, I can't learn this, I can't do that. I'm like, no. Like, if you believe these things, I'm very dramatic when we speak in Amharic, and so she always thinks, oh, just leave me alone. She says that in our language, and I always say, like, okay, go ahead and die then. Like, let's prepare your grave for you.
It's a bit more funny in Amharic than English, but...
You don't say that about your mother. Oh, that's not funny.
That's like the joke.
Funny.
And then, like,
okay, that's just how we say things.
No, that's not how you. No, that's not okay. That's not
okay, we agree to disagree. But anyway, please do, and not only pray for her life, pray for her attitude to change about herself and the expectations that she set for herself. And I would like to ask that: how have you shaped expectations and values with your parents, maybe younger siblings, older siblings? How does that look like for you?
For me, I will say, at least for the viewers and listeners that can't relate to Awoe and Serwah, because I feel like you guys are pretty, and Sami, obviously, you guys are pretty open and like actively converse with your parents. I do not. I think that's not only my nature, but as well as the nurture that I feel like I've been brought up in, only because I'm very like, oh, you betrayed me this one little time. It's like, all right, I'm never telling you anything again. I'm very dramatic. So I don't tend to, I don't know. I think my parents, like, I know at least my mom is more open. My father, not really, unless I like, you know, bother him like a daddy's girl would. But for the most part, I think the only quote unquote expectations I have are obviously the, you know, fundamental ones of like having gone to a good school, being married, having kids, which I don't want, and all that stuff. Whichever one I do want or don't want. But overall, I think to be happy and to be successful, wherever that, not successful in wherever that takes me, right? Not necessarily in the point of like having a lot of money, having a big house, having cars, whatever, just being, I would hope, being just happiness. But otherwise, I don't think I've had an explicit conversation with either one of my parents. I don't really want to cross that threshold personally. And I feel like even as an adult, and I'm the youngest, right? Or one of the youngest, but I I don't feel like that's necessary. I feel like because of the way that my parents have, and maybe this is the way I've interpreted it, I don't want to speak ill of my parents at all. I think the way my parents have, like, you know, similar to y'all's, like, they haven't spoken about a lot of things. It's like, all right, we're not about to start talking about it now. I'm grown. Like, obviously, y'all wanted me to figure out by myself, so I'm doing it. That's just, I think that's just me, though. I just wanted to say that for me and for listeners who may not relate to y'all, because, again, you guys seem mad open, which is beautiful, but can't relate. So, like, just saying.
Relationship with my mom is a consequence of who I am as a person, and obviously her like change. Like, my mom has changed a lot in the past 4 years. Like, my mom 4 years ago and my mom now is like completely different person. Like, literally completely different person. And also, I don't know, anybody who knows me knows I'm someone who, like, once I know I want something or once I have an idea, I have to say it, or I have to, like, get my point across. And that's something that it took me 4 years to, like, finally get comfortable with, and then also, like, get my points across with my mom. And those conversations started with me telling her that I don't want to be a doctor. Like, that's not in my purview. Like, that's not going to happen. Because it's something that I'm not passionate about. And as someone who wants to be a globetrotter, like, being a doctor just does not work for that. And then also just, like, normal conversations about, I think in African homes, there tends to be certain things that I said that can be pretty offensive to, like, other people of different identities and also of different cultures. So, like, being like catching those moments and, like, always, like, correcting my mom, like, that's not okay. Like, you don't want people to hear this, like, and this is why, like, not just about hearing it, but, like, why you shouldn't be saying stuff like that. And also just, like, what's the word for it? Like, so, like, the patriarchy type stuff, like, it comes up a lot in my church sometimes. And also, like, at home, like, my mom's like, you need to learn how to cook for your husband and you know how to clean and all of that. I'm like, that is not, like, don't expect that out of me. Like, I will do it just because I want to, but I'm not training myself to become somebody's wife. Like, that is, exactly. I'm not training myself to fit a role. Like, that's not what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do it because, like, I want to. We're going to do it, me and my partner. But, like, I'm not going to, like, be like this one specific, like, you know, wife, like, domestic. Like, that's not gonna happen. And it's things that I've, like, I mention it to her every time she brings up stuff like that, and she gets upset, obviously. But I think she's learned that this is how I am, and she kind of lets it go, but she brings it back up, obviously. But it honestly, my relationship, like I said before, it is a consequence of who I am. So, like, Blossom's relationship with her parents is also a consequence of how she is as well. So I think everybody's relationships can differ, and how they communicate with their parents can differ.
Yeah,
for sure, definitely. Great point.
Yeah, I think for me, it's very similar to Serwah's point about, like, talking to my parents, at least, like, more so my mom, like, about sort of, like, being more progressive, you know, and, like, more thinking more in the present, thinking about community, thinking about other people. You know, I'm like, we shouldn't say that. You can't call someone of a different race. You know, you can't be like, you can't assume all East Asians are Chinese. Like, that's wrong. We can't, you know, just assume that, you know, or, like, I don't know, sort of stuff like that. And I think it sort of comes from me realizing, and I think this sort of happened when I came into college, that they're not, like, my parents, they're older than me, and I respect them, of course, but they're also human beings. They're also just people, like, trying to figure stuff out. And they're not perfect. They're very, very, very far from perfect. And I'm learning stuff, and my experiences are valid. So, like, I should, like, be able to, like, talk to them about it. And so, like, it's made it sort of like, well, at least we're trying to have it be, like, a very open relationship, where we, like, talk about stuff, and we're like, oh, like, this is what I want. This is what we want from ourselves. My sister definitely says the same thing that you were saying, Serwah. Like, she's not gonna learn how to cook for, you know, her future partner. It's like she's gonna do it for herself, and like that's that, you know. And I was telling her, like, me personally, like, I'm not expecting my partner to do all these things for me because it's their job, but rather like if we're in a relationship, that like you do it because you want to, you know, not because it's like your role, you know. Like, I'll do whatever I want, and if anything, I'm taking care of myself. Like, I'll definitely be taking care of myself. Like, I'll know how to cook so I can cook for myself, but not because, or not for someone else to cook for me, you know. And like, just being open about those, because there is not only like a generational difference, but also like a cultural difference, you know. So it's like we're in a different generation, but also like in a different country with different values, and like they're very heavily entrenched in like their own generation, their own values, and we're like somewhere else, and like trying to like pull them, like try and make that connection regularly. It's a challenge, but like I think we're definitely like moving forward. And
I really want to merge what you always just said with Serwah's points, you know, about having to have the ability to really, you know, review our parents and what they're able to provide for us at a certain time, and notice their own growth occurring at our own time. And like you said, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, our parents were very different people, and having the ability to engage with them on certain topics. And when we discuss, you know, excellence for ourselves, because although our parents brought us into this world, we ultimately will be departing as individuals, and we ultimately are the last ones to, you know, really speak for ourselves and what we were able to do in this great life of ours. I want us to, for the last question, for a 5-minute wrap up, what are some of these, you know, values that you found were maybe those new additions, maybe in our college years or recently coming out of college, that were maybe not necessarily ingrained in your household, or maybe some lessons that you were able to take and then you're trying to push into your future networks? For myself, for example, I think I really value my parents' connection and like love for stability and having, you know, a family network and growing from that. However, I think I really enjoyed speaking for myself, and my sense of independence, that was something that my parents had to adapt to. Something that really brought us butting heads and severe debates and arguments, but something that I'm not willing to compromise for. As well as my ability to, I don't know, I guess exist with a more critical sense of why our culture or traditions have these things. Just to provide a little background related to events happening in Ethiopia and our diaspora, a lot of people are bringing up to the question what it means to be Ethiopian when you're not necessarily represented well in the diaspora or the country itself. And right now, I'm more willing to be critical of that question more so than my parents are. What about y'all?
I like respect my parents for like one value I really hold is their not only like desire, but like their follow through when it comes to like staying connected with family, you know. And like I don't know, like my mom's incredibly close with her family in Ghana, and I don't know, I think it's like we're here in this place of privilege, you know, and for like different aspects of life, and her still being able to like connect and maintain those connections. I think it's challenging, especially when, for me personally, it's like, oh, here's a cousin that you don't know or you don't remember. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. But like, they're still family, and like, I shouldn't just move on, because if I'm not careful, I could very much easily like be completely disconnected, you know, from family. And I don't know, I respect them for that. And one thing I'm trying to, that I'm like, I guess a new value, I guess, is more of that critical lens, you know, like, let's not just accept things as they are. Like, let's criticize why we think, you know, men and women have these roles, you know, or like our role in society, you know. I think it's important to like question those rules and like, screw it. Like, we don't have to follow by those rules. We could talk more about that, but I'll let y'all go ahead and share.
Blossom, you can go ahead. Because I'm still trying to understand the question, to be very honest with you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I can maybe do like a 10-second blurb or a blossom if you feel ready. Okay, so yeah, I just wanted to get a sense of, we obviously can't control the households we're born into. We can't control the environment and what we're able to absorb. I wanted to get a sense of maybe one or two things that you really value from that environment, as well as, maybe the qualities of yourself that maybe make you a rebel or something defiant in our environment's eyes, and something that you're willing to grow in your future.
I think for me, the values I truly respect from my mom is like her hard work and her perseverance. Like, she is someone that like is respected in her community, and is like someone I aspire to be like someone who commands respect when they walk into the room. Like, we're like, oh, that is Serwah, you know? And also, I think another thing that I really respect is how much she cares for our family back home. Like, she is always doing what she can to help my grandmother, my aunt, my cousins, like everyone. Right. Like, she's always giving them a piece of the cake. A piece of the pie. She's always doing what she can to help, even if she may not be in the best situation. Like, she's always thinking about them, and that is something I truly, truly admire and respect, and something like that I hope to be able to continue once I, have a stable life. I think one thing that is very different now in my household is just who I like. My mouth. Just because like I said before, like, I'm always challenging like certain norms that my mom tries to like instill in me. Like, I just can't vibe with it. It doesn't work for me. And also, like, things that I said in the home or outside the home, like making sure to address them like when they happen, not later on. When they happen, explaining why they shouldn't be said, and why it's important that this conversation is had. That's something that, may be seen as being a rebel in an African home or in an immigrant home in general. Like, you're just supposed to sit and like listen to your parents. But there are certain things that I'm not willing to back down on, especially as someone who is a minority myself. I understand that there are minorities who face even worse situations than I do. Like, I cannot allow like conversations that demean other groups too.
Yeah, after some deliberation, I have to think about it. I think for me, I really respect the fact that my parents, no matter what has happened, will happen for any of their kids, right? My siblings and I, like, they're always there for us. I mean, and that's like being a parent, but like, as always said, they're fundamentally human, and that humans can be very petty, very vindictive, and things like that. So I do appreciate, like, if I need anything from them, and that's always been my life, right? If I needed anything, like, I don't even know to give an example, but like, even now, my full-time job, like, Mom, can I get some gas money? Sure. Like, or she'll like debate it, but like, she'll, eventually give it to me, which I appreciate. And obviously I don't need it, so I think it's just the sense of knowing that you always have a safety net of, at least for me, and I thank God for that, a safety net of my parents always being there for me, always having my back, no matter how much they annoy me, I annoy them, or whatever the case may be. Even thinking about, like, when you see that your siblings are being disrespectful, it's like, that's crazy, they don't deserve this, but then your parents are like, well, what can I do? It's my son, it's my daughter. And it's like, dang, that's crazy, but it's their son, it's their daughter, right? We're their children. So I think just seeing that, I really do appreciate that. I appreciate that. So I respect that. It's always like all good in the neighborhood. You know what I mean? At least in the Oginyenka neighborhoods.
Yeah. And with that wraps up another episode of The Core. Stay tuned for our next release. Thanks y'all for listening.
Yeah.
Bye.